everyone, welcome back. There's a bit of a change of scenery today because this is going to be a hefty video for me specifically because we're talking about money, which is always crazy to talk about. But I kind of wanted to break down what the costs are for my family to move to Japan. And so it's gonna get crazy. We're gonna talk about preparation costs, which include like flights and passports, and then apartment costs, which is initial move-in costs, as well as getting furniture and appliances, and then also what it costs to move pets, what all that entails. I have another video that goes more in depth of what it takes to move a pet internationally, so you can check that out. I will link it here, and I'll also put the link in the description as well. So first, let's talk about preparation costs. I know a lot of people express that it's cheap to move to Japan, that you can move to Japan with as little as $2,000 in savings. Sure, it might be reasonable if you're single and you don't care about living in, you know, the smallest apartment that you can find in a remote location of the country, but that's just not reasonable for most people. So I'm hoping that this is a reasonable account of what it takes to move there. So first of all, you need a passport. So if you don't already have a passport, that is about $165 in the United States to get a passport for the first time, or it's about $130 to renew it if it's going to expire before the time that you travel there. And then you need flights, which one-way flights are not as expensive. You can get a one-way flight from anywhere from $500 to $1,000 depending on what season it is. I think that our family, we spent somewhere in the middle of that because we weren't traveling necessarily right in the middle of like the big tourist season, but we're kind of at the tail end of that, so prices are still a little bit high. But if you're looking at a round trip ticket, you're looking at anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 plus US dollars to go to Japan and then come back. And that's just on flights. The next thing that you need is, if you are going to be moving to Japan, you'll need a visa. So there's a lot that goes into getting a visa. However, whenever you submit your application to the Japanese consulate, whichever consulate, you know, does the paperwork for the city that you live in, US citizens are exempt from the fees for the visa application, so that doesn't cost any money. However, I am not currently anywhere near the city that handles the visa applications for me, so I had to mail that. It cost about $10 to $15 for postage, and that's because I had to pay for the postage for my paperwork to get there, and then I had to pay for the postage for the paperwork to get back to me. They didn't pay for any of that. So, which, if I'm exempt from the fees, I don't mind paying postage to save me a 12-hour round trip to drive to that city and then drive back home. This one is optional. I got an international driver's license so that I can rent a car or buy a car if I need one. I also recently got my motorcycle license, and motorcycles are very popular in Japan. So this gives me the opportunity to be able to get a motorcycle and, you know, drive a motorcycle to work if I need to. That cost about $20, and I went to AAA for that. I do have a AAA membership, so that was helpful. If you don't have a AAA membership, it might be more, but it was about $20 for that. And then the last thing that you'll need for preparations is photos for your passport, for your visa, and for your international driver's license. So those can cost anywhere from $10 to $30 depending on how many you need and how many times you have to go. They're also free at home if you have a camera and you can size it correctly, and then if you have the correct printer to be able to print them at home. But generally most people go out and get those, so it's about $10 to $30 depending on how many you need. Next, let's talk about apartments. It's true, Japanese apartments are very cheap. However, they're pretty small, and there are a lot of upfront fees. Some ways that you can get around this are by applying for and being accepted into the JET program, or going through an eikaiwa that will help foreigners initially with housing. My eikaiwa that I will be working at this coming year is one of those that helps with housing. However, they do not accommodate pets at all. So I have been tasked with finding my own housing in Japan from America. So we're gonna break it down. So first, rent. It's like $500 for an apartment that will comfortably fit my family of 2 adults and 3 cats, which is wonderful. It's great. It's pretty cheap in America. However, the initial move-in costs are exponential. So on top of the about $500 US for a month's rent, I'll have to pay 2 months rent up front. So we're already double the initial cost. I'll also have to pay an agency fee, which can be around 1 to 2 months rent. I'll also have a key money, which is a gift to say thank you for letting me live in your place to the landlord, which is about 1 to 2 months rent. I might have a deposit. Not all apartments require a deposit, but if they do require a deposit, that is another month's rent to your initial costs. Finally, there's a guarantor fee, which is on average 1 to 2 months rent. So far, we are way over a single month's rent or even 2 months rent that you would normally pay in America up front to move into an apartment. So sure, your month-to-month cost is very cheap, but your initial upfront cost is crazy. So if you're thinking about coming to Japan to live and to work, I highly suggest you accumulate some savings to help you with those initial move-in costs if you have to find housing on your own. Now, if you don't have to find housing on your own, I can only assume that you don't have all of these fees up front. You might. I never really got that far since I gave my information on who will be living with me to the agent for the housing with my eikaiwa and immediately was told, nope, sorry, we don't accommodate pets. So your experience may be different. I would love to hear about it down in the comments. With the apartment, I will also have to buy my own furniture and appliances like normal. However, Japanese apartments rarely come with a refrigerator and a washing machine for laundry. And sometimes, I would say probably 75% of the time, they don't come with a stove either. So I will probably have to purchase all of those items. By all means, find your own apartment here, but I highly, highly recommend having some savings if you want to live comfortably and you don't want to just have an empty apartment with a single futon on the floor. If you want a bed, have a savings account so that you can comfortably pay all of the moving costs and get some furniture. Next, let's talk about moving with pets. So I have 3 cats, so you may need to divide everything by 3 to give you a better estimate if you only plan to travel with 1 pet, but I do have 3, so keep that in mind. So first off, for vet appointments, I did not expect to spend that much. I knew that it was going to be a lot because of all of the requirements that it takes for them to go internationally, but I did end up spending about $900 just for vet appointments, and that doesn't include the health certificate because I can't do a health certificate until 10 days before. So I'm not exactly sure how much that is going to cost, but so far for 3 cats, I have spent about $900. And that included 1 microchip, 2 or 3 rabies shots, and the blood test that they have to do. Thinking about it, it's actually not too bad per pet, but it is still a lot considering we have 3 and $900 is a lot of money, especially in this economy. And the next thing that we paid for our cats is for a third-party travel service. The third-party travel service has done wonders for us. They have done all of our paperwork, they have booked our flights, and they will take our cats through security, take them onto the plane, make sure that they are fed throughout the plane, make sure that they are taken care of on the plane, and then they will also take them through customs in Japan when we get there. And all we have to do is take them to the airport and then pick them up from the airport in Japan. So that's wonderful. That did cost us about $6,000, but we did choose one of the most basic packages that we could, and we do have 3 cats. So if you decide to use a third-party travel service and you only have 1 pet, you can expect to pay anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 depending on the package that you want. There were options for us to spend $15,000 to $20,000, and they covered everything, including our vet visits, and they picked them up from our house in America and they would take them to our house in Japan. But we didn't want to pay all of that money up front. It seemed kind of pointless to us to go through all of those hoops when we're perfectly capable of taking them to the airport and picking them up from the airport. Also, I don't think that I can go that long without seeing my babies. So I need to see them at the airport. So in total, for our family of 2 plus 3, we are expecting to pay a grand total of this much that I haven't calculated yet, but I will when I edit this. So here it is. Obviously, we are not the same as everybody else, and some people may have more costs, some people may have less costs when moving. So it's always important to keep your own personal needs into account when planning to move, and especially planning a trip overseas. Again, I highly recommend coming with a savings account. There are a lot of options and prices can be forgiving in some cases, but generally, if you want to move comfortably, I definitely recommend having at least $2,000 to $3,000 in savings per person. That has been helpful for us to keep in mind. We have been working towards a savings account, and we feel a lot more comfortable with our move, knowing that we will have enough in savings to help us get there. Thank you so much for watching. I hope if you are planning to move and work in Japan, that everything works out great for you. I hope this video was helpful in your planning journey. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next video.